So it's Jen, and today I want to talk about gold and silver. And um, I like this guy, Mario. His channel is MANECO 64, and he's got a great video out this morning. And I'm going to play part of it for you, and let's see what he says.
Being dishonest about gold. He knows what he's talking about there because he's trained as a lawyer. So, some of the other things, the guy from Mexico or BISMD, the other thing I thought was really funny, I had to laugh. This is what he said: fiat money works because there is a strong institution, i.e., the central banks, that provides trust to money. And that is what makes money work in the world. I mean, these guys are really comical. I'm sure a lot of people, the majority of people out there, even experts and economists, are going to buy into this. But we know that it's all it all doesn't make sense. We know that central banks are actually the problem, and we know that gold and silver have been and still are money. They are the most stable store of value, and they have been for thousands of years. Yes, they're not used as currency right now because we have legal tender laws that prohibit people from
Legal
using
tender.
it. But up until the 60s and early 70s, people were still using silver as money and currency. Up until, I guess, 1933, people were still using gold as money and currency. And in Europe as well before World War One. So it's only because they've made it illegal.
They made it
And
illegal.
just wanted to give some more proof here. And this is
So he's going to give proof. So go out and watch his video. It's MANECO 64. He did this one today, March 23rd, 2021. And it says Fed chairman sees gold as speculative and not a useful store of value. So, of course, the Fed chair is going to say that because the Fed chair is speaking from the perspective of the legal institutions, okay, not the real persons, not the real people. And there's a difference between what's legal and what's real, okay? So, to help explain this, I turn to a book on jurisprudence, which is also called Theory of Law by John Salmon. This book's available on the internet. You can find it out there. Just Google this information here, and you'll come across one from, I think there's a website called Musicians for Freedom that they have this, but you can also find them on like um, different library websites. Okay, so we go to PDF, page 358, and we look up persons. So basically what happened is they allowed natural people, natural human beings, the real things, the creations of God's creations, the people of the land, however you want to look at it, us animals in nature of the highest order, because they say we have intelligence, that we can create things. Okay, so we create things, and when we people create things, we create things called fictions. Okay, when we have babies, those babies are real. When we get married, our families are real. But when we create things, those things are fictions. We create myths, we create angels and spirits. He says right here, God's angels and spirits of the dead are persons. So he calls the natural person and the legal person, which is the fiction, which is man's creation, not God's creation. We're God's creation. And if you're not religious or you're not, you don't believe in God, it doesn't matter. You can still look at it this way, but substitute God as being whoever the creator is or whatever allowed all this to happen, or just the mere fact that we come from the earth. Okay, so we are natural, and being natural, the natural things, we create things. And when we create things, those things, whether they're appearing real or not in the legal system or in the law system, they're called fictions. Okay, so when we talk about angels, those are our ideas of things, a way to explain things. They're called fictions. Angels, okay, we manifest spirits of the dead in our minds or to some of us in reality, and they are also called persons. Okay, um, so there are in law persons who are not men, like joint stock companies, municipal corporations. He goes on to explain like hospitals, asylums, churches, libraries, universities, colleges. All of these are fictions because they're creations of men. Okay, so a fictitious person is not a real person, um, and is not a fictitious man. It's a personality, not human nature, and is fictitiously attributed by the law to bodies corporate. Okay? And there's a lot in here, really good stuff that you need to read. And this is a good book to read because he doesn't go too much back and forth. A lot of writers of law, they like to, I don't know if they like to be confusing, but they are confusing. They go back and forth and back and forth, and they're arguing and they're trying to sort out what's real and not what's not real. And they're trying to explain, and in their effort to explain, they make things more complicated. So here's this paragraph. It's short. It says, persons are so defined as two kinds, distinguishable as natural and legal. A natural person is a being to whom the law, okay, the law is the commands of the sovereign. That's what the law is. When the sovereign makes a command, that is the law. Whom the law attributes personality in accordance with reality and truth. Legal persons are beings, real or imaginary, to whom the law attributes personality by way of fiction. Okay, when there is none in fact. Natural persons are persons in fact as well as in law. Legal persons are persons in law, but not in fact. So the money system that Mario is talking about, created by the fiction, and they're fictions because they're creations of man, the banks, the Federal Reserve notes, the Congress, Congress's laws, they're all fictions of man. So they're all legal. But being legal doesn't make them real. Being real makes it real. Okay, so these things that are created by men are fictions. So what he's saying is the fiction is determining what's real and not real and calling it legal, and he's calling it legal as if it is real, but it's not real. It's a fiction, but it's real inside the fiction. So if you're in the fiction, so if you're a banker at the bank, to you, you might say, well, this money that I printed on the printing press is real. Okay? If you're outside of the bank, you're outside of that, and you're in the real world as a natural person, not a legal fiction, you're going to look at the paper money and say, well, that's not real. That's just a piece of paper with ink on it and some pretty pictures. But you're going to pick up gold and silver and you're going to say, this is real. So we have two systems. We have the real system that uses real things, not creations of man, such as gold and silver are real things, not fiat currency, which is fake. Now, fiat currency, once people start moving away from the legal fiction and moving into things that are real, such as gold and silver, this big empire is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, and this is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. That's why they keep telling you, buy gold and silver, because you're going to miss the boat, because a lot of people are buying gold and silver right now. They're using their fiction money that they got from working for a corporation, which is a fiction, and they're using it to buy gold and silver to then use in the real world, in which will grow the real world and decrease the fiction. Okay. Ron Paul said that when the Federal Reserve ends, the empire falls. Okay. So This is a good book to read. Um, it's Jurisprudence or the Theory of Law by John Salmon. And it talks in chapter 15 about the legal fictions. So you should consider giving that a good look at. There's about 33 pages in chapter 15, so it's not a lot to read, and you get a lot out of it, and it's very simple to understand. Okay, so I made this chart based on what the book said. So natural persons are in fact and real. They're not juristic, so they're not in law. I've got another book uh, on sovereignty. Well, I've got several books on sovereignty, but sovereignty basically is someone who has the power to command others. Our government does not have the command to the power to command sovereign, free, independent individuals. Okay, they never had that power, and if you believe they have that power, you were lied to and you believed a lie. It's hard to pluck out those beliefs once they've been in there for a long time, but in order to move from the fake to the real, we've got to start understanding that some of the things that we believe are not real. Okay, so not juristic, meaning not legal. A natural person can be legal, but a person only in his natural capacity is not legal. He can create legal things in the legal system. So a natural person is a man, a human being. They are persons, but they're also not legal persons, but then they are legal persons for some purposes. Has personality in accordance with reality and truth, and are persons in fact as well as in law when they choose to go be in law. So a legal fiction person is not in fact, not real, is a fiction, fictitious, artificial, or mythical, like a god or an angel or some, mythical thing that people have made up. Those are fictions. President is a fiction. Um, Congresswoman or congressman is a fiction. A banker is a fiction. Okay, over here there's just men and women and children. They are juristic. That means the law commands them. They're commanded by the law. They have to act in accordance with what's legal, the legal systems. They use Federal Reserve notes. And to them, that's a real currency, but only in their fictional world that they've created. Okay, they have rights and duties, such as those under the oath. They have to abide by the Constitution. There are such things as gods, angels, the dead, corporations, myths, real or imaginary. Also, he says later there are a variety of other things. They are considered persons, okay, such as joint stock companies and municipal corporations. They're in legal contemplation. They're not a fictitious man, not a fictitious man. Okay, so that was italicized in the book. So it's not a man because men cannot be fictions. Men can be legal creations. Personality, not human nature. Body's corporate. So they have a personality, but the personality is not human in nature. They are bodies corporate. Bodies corporate have personalities. Bodies corporate possesses judicial significance and thus receives legal recognition. Legal recognition. Okay, I want to talk about legal recognition for just a second. Here in the place where I live, this is an application. An application, when it comes from a legal fiction, is an advertisement. Okay, it's just an advertisement. The advertisement is a legal document. Okay, this is for Texas, the state of Texas. Okay, the state of Texas. This is for a legal document in the state of Texas. Now, the state of Texas is not Texas. Just so you know, Texas is created by natural persons, by natural people. State of Texas is a legal fiction. Okay, and there's a congressional report, I think 1867, where Mr. Cowan asks Congress, is the state a creature created by the men in Congress, or is it something real created by the people of the state? Okay, so when Congress is talking about state, it's talking about something it created, not something that created it. And we know in the Constitution that the states created the federal government. So it asks for child's birth, place, the parent's legal name, and the child's legal name. And that's how, other than the highlighting, that's how they have it on the application. It's bolded and it's underlined and it's capitalized, okay? Because your legal name is going to be capitalized. So if I could do it all over again and create birth certificates for my children, on their birth certificate that they offer me, I would simply just put a line from here to here, and I would put not applicable or no contract or private and give it back to them. That way, I've done what they've asked me to. I filled it out. They can do their job and say, I gave it to her. She filled it out. She gave it back. I have no information to input into the computer for the creation of another legal fiction. Okay? I don't want to get into the whole citizenship thing because I have videos on that you can watch. I also have video on the birth certificate, sovereignty, okay, and things such as this. So in their fiction, let's go back to where we were. Okay, the body's corporate, possessing judicial significance, and thus receives legal recognition. So now you're under this law. Okay, but this legal fiction thing, none of it's really in the Constitution, except for the creation of the titles of the people in government. Okay, they're acting as a legal fiction. There's no intention in the Constitution that was intended to create every single human being into a legal fiction. They did that because they wanted to be able to claim sovereignty over you, which meant that they could command you. Okay? They cannot command a natural person because they're legal fictions. Legal fictions cannot command what's natural. They can only command what agrees to it or what comes under the Constitution by way of oath or citizenship. Your citizenship as a citizen of the United States is a legal fiction. They are personality by way of fiction. When there is no person in fact. There's no actual person. There's no man or woman. There's just a personality, which is a fiction. Persons in law, but not in fact. Arbitrary creations of the law are of any kind. The first class, corporations and members. Members are the members of Congress or the members of government, the ones that have an oath, members of the military. Okay, for government purposes. Those are what members are. You can also be a member of a corporation. You can be a member of a gym. Okay, you can be a member of social media sites. That's why they ask you for your legal name, and they claim that you have to be in the United States when the United States is actually just federal lands. It's not an entire country. The entire country are the states that created the United States and gave the United States some small areas of land to do their work on, which was defense with a C. Second class, institutions, churches, hospitals, universities, such and such. And the third class are kind, which they didn't say class, they said kind. Fund, estate, charitable fund, trust, estate, property of a dead man, bankruptcy. Okay. Now we get into the gold and silver, the money. Real people use real money. Fake people use fake money. Okay? That's the way it works. So if you want to use fiat currency, you have to have the fake birth certificate and the fake, driver's license and all the fake social security number and all this stuff. And you got to get a license to work and you got to get, insurance, and you have to do all these things. Real things, real people don't do that. Okay, they're not required because they don't come under the law. All right, so now I want to show you how the laws show you this. And they don't come right out and say it, of course, because everything they do is sort of hidden, and they count on you not knowing what you need to know to really understand what it is they're doing, because you not understanding gives them power. It gives them power because you keep going into their system and going into their system and going, and there's nothing in the Constitution that allows them to create all this. Okay? So what we do is we go down to the, okay, so this is, you can Google the letters OLRC and you come to this website. You click on it, you come to this website, and this is the page that comes up: Office of the Law Revision Council, United States Code. I search this thing all the time. You can do word searches here and just look for stuff. Okay, and then you go down to the bottom, and there's a little asterisk there that's like a key. This title has been enacted as positive law. So anything without an asterisk is not a law. You can go into Title 1, Chapter 3, Section 204A, and it says it. If the title is not made positive, then it's not a law. It's just a title. It's an editorial compilation. And it can reference things like acts that have been made law and have been made positive, but that doesn't mean that the things in the title have been made positive, and that doesn't mean that the title's made positive. Okay, so Title 1 is a law, Title 2 is not. Okay, so general provisions is a law, the Congress is not a law. The president is a law, flag and seal, seat of government, and the states is a law. Government organization and employees is a law. Domestic security, not a law. Okay, and you can go down through this list. And here we get to Title 12, banks and banking. Commerce and trade is not a law. Conservation, not a law, because all these things are outside of the Constitution. Okay, all these things are in the legal realm outside the Constitution, the fictions. Okay, internal revenue is a fiction. There's no positive law. It's not a law. It's just a bunch of stuff, a bunch of shit piled into a book and then published. And it's not really even published, it's just available on the internet. Published, according to the federal government, means it's in the Federal Register. And if it's in the Federal Register, that means it's been made a law, because one of the things that it has to have to be made a law is to be published. Okay, the other thing is it has to have an enacting clause, it has to have a positive law citation, it has to be published. All these things have to happen before something can be made a law. Well, Title 26, not all those things have happened, it's not a law. Intoxicating liquors, so prohibition was never a law, except for on federal lands, because these are considered rules and regulations and can be on federal lands. So let's look at banks and banking, Title 12. Title 12 is not a law. It's a legal fiction. Okay, it's not real. There's no authority for it. It may become a law if they offer you an advertisement called a form, and it has a federal form number approved by the Office of Management and Budget. Has to have a form number, and they call it an advertisement. So these non-positive institutions, such as the Federal Reserve Bank, the IRS, let's see, anything they give you when you send your kids to school, because education's not a law. Hospitals and asylums, not a law. Let's see. Oh, Title 34, crime control and law enforcement is not a law. Okay, voting in elections is not made law. It's not a law, because they're trying to do it outside the Constitution. They've made something up, and they're trying to push it outside the Constitution. So let's look at what are the laws, like general provisions, the president, flag and seal, seat of government. These are things that they can do according to the Constitution, and they can do them on federal lands. But you have to be careful, because like highways, I looked in Title 23 highways, and I didn't find a positive law citation. That doesn't mean that it's not in there somewhere hidden, but here they have an asterisk by it. However, highways come under concurrent jurisdiction, and there is no concurrent jurisdiction in the Constitution, as far as I know. There's only exclusive jurisdiction, which are the other ones, like general provisions, flag, seal, seat, president, such and such. See, aliens and nationality. The way they apply aliens and nationality, the laws for that are not constitutional. So they offer advertisements, which are forms and have an OMB number, meaning they're federal forms. And those federal forms are non-federalistic. It says on the approval sheet that you can find on the internet before they get approved and during the approval process and after they're approved, it says whether or not it complies with the ideas of federalism. Most often, these papers say no because they're not real. They're legal. Okay, remember, legal things are fictions. So a lot of times, some of these people will say, "Well, politicians are liars. That's what they do. They lie. They lie." The lie they tell is the one where they're trying to make you believe that their system is the real system and you have to be a part of it, which is not true. We don't have to be a part of it. But the real thing we cannot not be a part of, okay, because that's our nature. We're human beings. Gold and silver and copper and platinum, diamonds, things that come from the ground, trees and wood, those are all real things. The grass, the air, the land, those are all real things. No legal fiction has a right to control a legal thing, a real thing. Okay, a fiction cannot control what is real. A fiction can only control another fiction, which is why they have to get you to get the birth certificate, why they have to get you to get a social security number, a driver's license, um, use of their fiat currency. That way they can control you, because without you, they can't exist. They can't exist. So they need you. You're their life support. And this should sound, if you're familiar, this should sound real matrixy. That's what the Matrix is talking about. And one of my favorite shows, The Walking Dead. If you can see the politics behind a lot of the stuff that they say, that's what they're saying also. So it's in there. So there you have it. You have the option to be real and not legal. How do you destroy a legal fiction? I guess just not use it anymore. They were saying just walk away. Just walk away if you don't want to be a part of it. It's really hard to just walk away if you don't have any money. Your home that you live in is registered with a mortgage company and you have to pay for it. This is also what I wanted to say that I almost forgot to say, is that this is why they can't use, and when I say they, I'm not talking about the positive laws, but I'm talking about banks and banking, why they can't use gold and silver. This is why they will say gold and silver is not currency, it's not money. It's not for them, because they work off debt, because they work off fictions. Gold is real. They can't accept gold as money. That's why if all this fake money disappeared, they can't make you pay your mortgage. They can't make you pay your car note. They can't make you pay a lot of things that go through financial institutions, credit cards and such, because if you only have gold and silver, they can't accept that, because they are part of banks and banking and the debt system. Okay, and all of that is under the legal fiction, not the real person. Okay, so I needed to say that. Let's see. Now they're not calling them debt notes, they're calling them reserves. That's what Mario said in his video today. So check him out, and check out some of his videos if you want to know more about money. But keep in mind, there's two systems, the natural and the legal, at least in the United States. He's in London, or right outside of London, I think. So I'm not really sure. I don't know his personal information, but he's mentioned some things here and there. I think in this video he said he went to London today or yesterday to get some more silver. So that's why we need to get silver. We need to get silver so that we can move back over here and get rid of this. And like Ron Paul has said, we have to end the Fed. And the way we end the Fed is to stop using their currency, stop using their fake money. And once the Federal Reserve is ended, the empire falls. That doesn't mean it completely disappears and we won't have a constitution. That just means that it won't be as big as it is anymore. It'll go back to being small because all of these non-asterisk titles will just disappear. They'll go to, they may exist on federal lands, but they won't exist off. There's no need for them to. Okay, and there's information on that that has to do with this, the creation of a legal state to supply for services to the members of the military on federal lands and their dependents. But that's something completely different. So there you have it. That's why we have to go back to gold and silver. That's why we have to go back to being what's real. That way we can gain control of our bodies. We can regain control of our wealth, our families. You know, all this CPS stuff will go away. All of this IRS stuff will go away. All of this getting a loan from a bank to buy things will go away. Having to pay a mortgage or for a vehicle, all that will go away because you'll be saving your money, which is gold and silver, and you'll be putting some away and you'll become your own bank. And there's stuff written on that too. And I've got a video on that from a guy who's a sixth generation trust attorney who talks a little bit about this stuff. I don't think he quite understands too between the real and the fiction. Maybe he does and he just doesn't mention it in his books. But he talks about how wealthy people, they don't go to banks to get money. They borrow from themselves, so they are their own banks. And when they need money to buy a vehicle or a house, they just get it from themselves, and then they pay themselves back, and they pay themselves back sometimes with interest. That way, they're always accumulating more wealth, and they never run out of money. And that's what I believe we have to do. And people use this phrase, there's nothing more sure in life than death and taxes. And I disagree. I don't think it has to be that way, at least not the taxes the way we see them now. So banks and banking, and then whatever does have an asterisk will be on federal lands because that's actually where they have jurisdiction, which is power. It's just on the federal lands. They came off the federal lands, like I said, to help contract between the real state, this state created by the natural people, and this state created by the federal government to provide services from here to here. So these people had built stuff and they wanted to come use it, but there had to be contracts on how all this was going to be paid for. Okay, so that made taxpayers, and then we had the 14th Amendment, but um, taxpayers of the people on the federal lands, because originally they were only federal citizens, they weren't federal and state citizens. So enter the 14th Amendment and the contracts, and then they became the citizens of the state and the federal citizens. And they were supposed to use actually gold and silver because that's what's in the Constitution. So they were still considered real people because they used gold and silver, but they don't anymore because they created the birth certificate and social security number, and they created all this fictional stuff. All right, so I'll stop it there, and hopefully you understood this, and you start considering more about getting into being back to your natural person and abandoning that fiction because we really don't need it anymore. All right, so please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, and have a great day. Share the video, please.